We are back again with Minute Micro Macro, looking at when does supply meet demand. Let's jump straight into a do now question to get warmed up. If the PED of instant coffee was negative 0.25, and back in 2012, each jar sold for £1 and 50,000 units were sold, and now in 2025, the jars were £1.60. Now that's in real terms because we're considering this to be ceteris paribus. A, what is the new quantity of coffee sold? So we know that PED is a percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. We can see quickly that the percentage change in price was an increase of 60% because we've gone from £1 to £1.60. We want to know, first of all, what the percentage change of quantity demand must have been before we can work out what the new quantity was sold. If we substitute in the numbers we have, negative 0.25 is equal to an unknown value we'll call x divided by 60. If we multiply both sides by 60, a quarter of 60 is going to be 15. So we know that the change in quantity demand was a fall of 15%. So question A asks, what is the new quantity of coffee sold? So let's reduce 50,000 by 15% by timesing it by 0.85, and we got 42,500 units sold. B, what is the change in revenue? We know total revenue is found by doing price times quantity, and so we'll have to find the new price times quantity. So we'll do £1.60 times 42,500, take away the old price times quantity, which is £1 times £50,000, and we'll see that that was a change of £18,000. And so what is the change? The change is an increase of £18,000. Part C says show this with a sketch using a ruler. We're going to start with drawing our price and quantity axes and a very steep downward sloping demand curve. It is steep to reflect the fact that 0.25 will give us an inelastic PED. We're going to draw on our initial price, which was £1, and we're going to show our initial quantity, which was 50,000. Then we're going to show an increase in price of 60%. So we're going to put the new price as £1.60 and our new quantity as 42,500 units. Our objectives today are to recognize the difference between movements along a supply curve and shifts of a supply curve, and to also know what factors are the ones that will shift the supply curve. So, what does a supply curve even look like? Well, we're going to start by drawing our axes in price and quantity. We're going to draw an upward sloping curve or straight line when we're drawing it with our ruler, and we're going to say that supply goes to the sky. You're going to say that as a mantra in your head when you're drawing your curves so you don't get them the wrong way around. The definition that you need to know for supply is the supply curve shows the amount firms are willing and able to produce. We can see that changes in price cause movements along the supply curve. Increase in price will cause an extension in supply, and we'll move along it to cause an increase in quantity supplied, which is measured on the x-axis. The reason that a supply curve slopes upwards is because firms aim to profit maximize, and as price increases, there is more incentive for firms to increase production. There is also increasing marginal costs for firms. As production increases, there are higher short-run variable costs that they need to cover. These are the two reasons that you will need to cite, if any, if you're preparing for exams that get you into university. However, some textbooks and some websites also cite a third reason, which I'm also including, and that is diminishing returns. As production increases, returns to marginal product will fall. This will make more sense after we've covered this topic in detail in a later unit. Often referred to as the father of modern economics, Adam Smith said every individual acting solely in the pursuit of private gain is led by an invisible hand promote an end which was no part of his intention. And so when supply and demand meet at a point, there is an equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity at which everything that is supplied is consumed by the market. If the price were any higher, supply would be greater than demand and we would have a surplus. If the price is any lower, the demand would be greater than supply and there would be a shortage. It is this communication through the price mechanism that allows the market to operate in an allocatively efficient manner. It's time to get your flashcards back out because we need to write down the factors that shift supply. We're going to use SIPN to help us remember the factors. If the government were to grant a subsidy, this would reduce the cost of production. A lower cost of production will allow the firm to produce more of a product, and so supply will increase. An increase in supply is a shift to the right. If the government were to set an indirect tax on a product, that would increase the cost of production. An increase in the cost of production will decrease supply and shift supply to the left. If production costs were to increase, That could be a cost of electricity going up, the cost of an ingredient, or the cost of a raw material. We would see a fall in supply, and that would be shown as a shift to the left. If productivity were to increase, this would reduce the cost of production per unit. This would mean that we would see an increase in supply, and supply would shift to the right. Finally, if the number of firms in an industry were to increase, we would see an increase in supply, and supply would shift to the right. Pause the video and see if you can have a go at 6 quick questions. Can you model the changes to the market for solar energy? A reduction in indirect tax would reduce the cost of production. Lower costs would see an increase in supply and would draw it as shifted to the right. This would form a new equilibrium and there would be an extension along demand. There'd be a new lower price at P2 and a new higher quantity at Q2. Our next question is looking at a reduction in subsidies. If we saw a fall in subsidies, that would then increase my cost of production. This would reduce supply and it would shift to the left. This would cause a new equilibrium and a contraction along demand. This would mean a new higher price at P2 and a new lower quantity at Q2. Now, our next question asks us what would happen if there was a fall in demand for solar power. This time we're shifting demand to the left because we're showing a reduction. This would cause a contraction along supply and we'd see a fall in price and a fall in quantity. Our fourth question asks us what would happen if there was a technological leap in the production of solar power. Well, this would increase productivity. This would reduce our average cost, and so we'd see an increase in supply and shifting it to the right. This would cause an extension along the demand curve, and a new equilibrium would form at a new lower price and a new higher quantity. Next, what would happen if there was an influx of new firms to the solar energy market? We'd see an increase in the number of firms, so we'd see an increase in supply. We'd show that with a shift to the right. There'd be a new equilibrium formed and an extension along demand. This would cause us to have a fall in price to P2 and an increase in quantity to Q2. Our final question asks us what would happen if there was a natural disaster that damaged the production of solar energy? Well, that would increase the cost of production and it would also reduce the productivity. We'd see a fall in supply, and so supply would shift to the left. This would form a new equilibrium and there'd be a contraction on demand, leaving us with a higher price at P2 and a lower quantity at Q2. How did you get on with those questions? Let me know in the comments. Well done for reaching the end of the video, and if you were taking part, great job. Thank you so much for watching the videos, and I'll see you next time.